The warm-up. One of the most important and often neglected procedures in climbing. Proven to minimize the risk of injury and benefit your overall performance during your session, but still climbers choose to skip their warm-up. Why? It's possible that there are just too many overcomplicated options when it comes to warming up. It's possible that climbers are confused. Do I dynamically stretch or statically stretch? Do I hangboard or just lightly climb? Am I supposed to hold a stretch for 14 seconds or 15 seconds? With so many options, how do you know which is best? Unfortunately, there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. Every person is different and has different needs. You will have to test what works best for you. In this video, I'll be including my basic warm-up routine that I use both indoors and outdoors, and I'm also going to be including a few tips for you to keep in mind when creating your own warm-up routine. I like to start every session with chugging about 500 milliliters or 2 cups of water. The reason I do this is I want to ensure that my muscles and my tendons are hydrated for climbing or training. So this just ensures that I've had enough before I start. Now, why 500 mils? Well, when I fill up my shaker bottle, it goes about 700 mils, and I leave 200 mils left over for my climber pre-workout that I take just before my warm-up. I like to do some dynamic movement with my arms, so you can see I'm dynamically stretching by basically swinging my arms around. I don't really have a number for this one. I just do it until the joints feel a little bit more loose, a little warm, and then I go into jumping jacks. And from jumping jacks, I go into arm circles. So I go forward and then I go backwards. I start off with small circles, and then I think I do roughly like 30 seconds one way, 30 seconds the other way, and then I start to go to larger circles. So much bigger circles forward and much bigger circles backwards. And this really warms up the shoulders really well. You should be getting a slight burn in the shoulders, and they should be kind of heating up now. I like to warm up with some bands. So these are 2 band exercises I like to do. Start off with the lower one. These warm up your rotator cuff. They're called external rotations. These are really, really nice. They make a huge difference when it comes to warm up and mobility. If you're gonna take anything from this, do these bad boys, because they make a big difference. You can do it with a weight, really light weight. I like the band, but you can also hold a weight and it works just as well. A guide we had out in Waco, his name is Luke, showed us this one, and I've used it ever since. I really love it. It really stretches out your bicep muscle, your shoulders, and it feels real good. So that's most of my dynamic stretching for the shoulders. And then I like to go into some static stretching. I start with my legs. They're larger muscles, so I do a bunch of leg stretches first. Now, there's always this controversy between dynamic and static stretching. I like to include a little bit of both. I've noticed that both of them help. If I do one over the other, I don't feel as ready to try hard. So now we're up on upper body stretching. So we start with the chest. You can see my arm is straight in this one. The reason my arm is straight, normally you'd put it bent, and we'll do that one after, but I do the straight arm one with kind of my hand turned sideways towards the wall, so we can get a deep stretch in the bicep muscle. This is just a warm-up stretch, so we're not trying to go as deep as possible. We just want minor discomfort, and then you're good. And then we go into this overhead stretch, and this one's really good for your lats. It stretches your lats quite well. Again, don't go too deep and not too long, so 10 seconds at most, and then switch arms. Then we're going to do our shoulders, so we're going to stretch our shoulders a little bit. So just standard shoulder stretches, the cross body stretch, both right arm, left arm. And then we're going to do some tricep stretching, so overhead tricep, and same right arm, left arm. And then from this one, we're going to go into stretching our forearms. So we just do standard forearm stretching. You can see it here. I start at the top, so pulling my hand back and then pulling it down, and then turn the arm around And then I do this. It's the same muscle you're stretching, but just in another angle. You're turning it around and pulling it down. And then you do the same with the left. And then I like to do some dynamic stretching with my fingers. These, you do about 50 reps, and you should get a nice warm, like it should be, you should almost be pumped doing these on your forearms. This is awesome. I do these all the time. My buddy Nick showed me these ones and they've been great. All right, so now after we do all the stretching and the muscles are loosening up, we're gonna jump on the wall and we're gonna do some light climbing. Now light climbing is like pretty much climbing jugs the first few climbs and then working your way up to something a little bit harder that's a few grades lower than your level, and then eventually working to your level if you're projecting that day. Now with warming up, you want to take this very slowly and lightly. You want to start easy and then work your way up. You don't need to do no specific grade pyramid stuff. Just go like real ridiculously easy. Even if you go from one easy climb to another, just to get movement and some volume in, so you get a little bit of a pump going on. That's what you want. You want to be warm. So if you got a small pump going on, you're good. That's okay. Just do as many so that you feel warm and ready to go. Your hands are warm, your body feels warm, etc. One tip that I like to give: when doing your warm-ups at a very easy level, you want to focus on technique and movement. This is the time to put technique and movement at your top priority. When you're projecting, it's hard to do like proper technique and movement. You basically just want to send the climb. But in this case, you're just doing something really easy. You might as well like make the footwork and the technique perfect, or as perfect as possible. One drill that I always do when warming up is the silent feet drill. So basically it's pretty straightforward. It basically tells you exactly what it is by the name. As you're climbing, you're not going to make a peep with your feet. So no sound at all while you're climbing. And if you make a sound, then you go back a move and then you do it again. Now the whole trick with this is not to send the route and not to like if you fall because you had to go back and do it again because your foot was making too much noise, you don't look stupid for falling off an easy thing. Like, you're warming up, you're practicing. This will pay dividends in the end. How much better your footwork becomes from doing this is phenomenal. So just keep that in mind. Like, this will make a big difference if you do the silent foot drill. And then finally, you can jump into some projects. So whatever the projects are, give her. Now this is only one type of warm-up. This is the type, like, this is my procedure that I follow. I've taken pieces of it throughout the years from different resources, and then I've tried different things myself. And this is what I find that I like the most. And I'll add different things or I'll remove different things depending on what I'm doing. Whenever designing your warm-up, just remember that the whole reason for it is to minimize the risk of injury. So thank you for watching. I hope that my warm-up will help you when designing your own warm-up. The only thing you really have to remember is that you just want your joints and muscles to be warm. The warm-up doesn't need to be complex or anything crazy in any way. You can make it as complex as you want, but really the basics of it is just get the muscles and the joints nice and warm so they're ready for when you start to climb.